Let's Travel with your hosts, Bryan Carvin and Paul Honor.
Hey there, welcome to Road Less Traveled, episode 72. Happy Sunday night. We're here with sobriety coach and the founder of the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival, Rob Ekno. We're super excited to have you on tonight, Rob. How you doing?
Oh, super excited to be here, Bryan and Paul. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
We're excited. Bryan, how you doing, man? What you got going on tonight, Bryan?
I was out walking around East Tennessee this morning and walking down a man-made, I don't know if you guys have walked it, over at the iJams Center, Nature Center. There's first time down it, it's a man-made, they carved into the rock and made a beautiful stairway down to the river.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a bit tricky.
I've been there quite a few times. I like it there a lot.
It's a bit tricky, yeah.
I'm in Michigan, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, my gosh. What are you doing in Michigan? There's a great place called the Great Smoky Mountains, right, Paul? It's beautiful.
Yeah, we've never actually been in the same place together knowingly.
Nope.
Bryan and I.
Wow, that would be like a cage match, perhaps. You guys could do a live podcast. I'll be the announcer, you know?
Well, you know, it's been suggested that we either have a dance-off or a fist fight, so I was leaning towards the fist fight.
And then somebody made that picture of us with boxing gloves looking at each other.
That's very cool. Very cool.
But we wouldn't be able in the same class, though, because he's shorter and lighter. So I'd be like middleweight, and he'd be like that. What's that, welterweight?
Yeah, it'd be a different weight class. Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Definitely different weight classes. But hey, so if you're watching us on YouTube tonight or watching a recording of this on YouTube, I want to remind you we are doing our giveaway of Greg Laurie's book, Lennon, Dylan, Alice, and Jesus. If you're our 100th subscriber, we're up to 94. So if you're our 100th guy or gal, I'm going to send you this book free of charge. So if you hit that button and you're number 100, make sure you hit me up.
Take a screenshot of that 100.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So Rob, oh man, I'm really excited hearing about your story. We met at the Rise Up Con a few weeks back. It was the Kevin Sorbo event in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And you were set up for the Hollywood Prayer Network, and it was really cool getting to meet you there. And I was really stoked when you agreed to come on the show with us and talk about what you got going on. But it sounds like you had quite the journey to get to where you are today. So,
you could say that.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm going to toss it to you and let you just take it away, man, and tell us your story, and we'll chat as we go.
So I grew up in Rhode Island, and I was in high school, and I actually helped a wonderful teacher of mine, Ken Grady, and he came back from the service and as a teacher, and he was in communications, and he wanted to give us a neat opportunity. So over a year and a half time, about 7-8 of us, we were able to raise $18,000 back in high school, and we were able to buy a 40-foot tower that we put on top of our old high school, and we started a regular radio station, a 200-watt radio station, WCVY-FM, Coventry, Rhode Island, 91.5, which now unfortunately has gone by the wayside after several decades of really good stuff happening. The teachers and stuff didn't have time for it, so they just used the stuff. But we had a regular newsroom, production office. We had to take transmitter readings. We all had to have licenses from the FCC. We had to do readings every hour. It was really cool. I mean, it was as professional as it gets. And many of my classmates, I just talked to one of them, Jonathan. He's doing some radio for, the last 30, 40 years. My friend Gary owns his own radio station up in Putnam, Connecticut. Alan, he is the voice of the Connecticut Huskies women's basketball team.
Oh, wow.
But he was a NASCAR announcer on ABC for years as well. So, and then there's me, Paul, who decided that drinking a lot of alcohol and snorting a lot of cocaine was a better route than doing anything intelligent with my life. So I had actually built up a career, and I was a nationally syndicated sportscaster out of Boston. And then I was covering the World Series. I remember one of the last things I did when I was standing on the field of, for those of you old-time sports guys, Harmon Killebrew of the Minnesota Twins. We were standing there at batting cage at the 87 World Series with the Twins and the Cardinals, and he's just standing there by himself. So I walked up and said hi, and all the other reporters are talking to other folks, and we had this great conversation. What a nice guy. And it wasn't long after that I was asking my mother to put me on a Greyhound bus because I'd lost everything. I sold my house. I made a $35,000 profit at the time. This was 30 some odd years ago, so even a lot more money than today, right? And so all of that got partied away. And I ended up homeless and jobless and penniless and you name it. And I ended up getting on a Greyhound bus station. Now, here's the crazy part, right? And by the way, all of this is in my book, Cruising Toward Heaven, Navigating from Rough Seas to Miraculous Adventures, available on Amazon. You can, I'll show you some of the pictures and stuff. We'll talk about some of the stories because this being May, Bryan and Paul, you guys already know this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So if we can have some goodness tonight to somebody who's watching, who maybe has starts having a better life or making some better choices because of our talk tonight, that would be totally awesome.
Yep.
And I will just share that many, many folks have already emailed me and texted me over the last year and a half. This was the 2024 International Impact Book of the Year gold medal winner in the category of addiction and recovery. So it is being used by many folks who are using it as part of their regular recovery program on a daily basis. So that's pretty cool. So hopefully we can maybe change at least one life in a better direction from our show tonight. That would be very, very cool. But here's the weird thing. You guys will laugh at that. This story is in this book. So I lose everything. My mother is nice enough to let me live in her freezing cold basement in Rhode Island, which was better than freezing cold out on the street in the snow, I tell you. So I am forever grateful to my mom for letting me have that opportunity. And anyways, can you imagine this? So a couple weeks before Christmas, way back when, it was, who knows when, I forget what year it was, but I had lost everything, and somehow I end up getting down to the beach in Rhode Island, about 40 miles from my mother's, and I meet some guy down there I hadn't met at a rock club that I used to work at, and we had some powder in our pockets, let's say, and then we met a couple of ladies, and he happened to have a house right on the beach, about a mile up the road, and he ended up letting me stay there for 3 weeks because I had nowhere to go. And I had no way to get back 40 miles to my mother's house. So this is crazy, right? This is when my first miracle happened, and I didn't even realize it. So the day before Christmas, all I had was my members only jacket. And at the time, guys, even though I was homeless, I became the main model for the hair club for men. I was wearing a hairpiece. Wow. So I have a hairpiece on covering my head. I have a members only jacket. It's like 20 degrees. I have no gloves, no anything. It snowed the day before. And I ended up, and he's like, dude, you got to leave this house. My family's coming for Christmas. They don't want you here. Uh-oh. And it's like, dude, you got to get out. I said, I don't got a ride. I have no money. It said, dude, either I punch you in the face and you leave, or you leave on your own, one or the other, but you're leaving. So I decided to leave. And oddly enough, I walked directly across the street and I built a sand. I dug a big hole in the sand on the beach. And I thought if I hid in the sand, I'd stay warm. Well, the wind was blowing, the sand is in my eyes and everything. And I'm like, okay, this is not going to work out too well here. So literally, guys, I walked, and I only know this because I've gone back a few times to Rhode Island, and I took the drive and measured it with my car. So I walked 12 miles from his place on a long winding, which would be considered a Tennessee back road, or one of our normal roads in Tennessee, one lane on each side. Snow had happened the day before, so it was plowed and piled up. So when cars were coming, I'm walking on piles of snow, trying not to get hit. Took me just under 4 hours to get that 12 miles. And mind you, I had no clue how far it was at the time. I just kept walking to Route 95, which, of course, is one of the main, roadways in America. And I get to the entrance ramp, and this is where it gets crazy. And this shows you that God is so far ahead of me, even though I was making ridiculous choices at the time. I just stepped onto the entrance ramp, and a tow truck pulls up and says, "Hey, man, where's your car?" And I said, "I don't have a car." And he said, "Well, you called me." He said, and I came down here to pick up you and your car and take it back to the shop. Where's your car? Wow. I'm like, "Well, somebody else must have called you." I said, "Because I don't have a car." And so I look at the address on the side of the tow truck, and I saw that he was going to be going back 2 exits past the exit where my mother lived.
Oh, boy.
So I said, "Hey, man," I said, "I know you can't take me to my house. I don't need to get there." I said, "But could you drop me off at exit 6? I said, "Because you're going to exit 8. I said, "I just need you to drop me off. Because that would save me 20 miles of walking." I was actually going to hitchhike for the first time ever in my life.
Wow.
And the day before Christmas, God sends a guy to pick up somebody in a car who wasn't there.
Unbelievable.
So the guy takes me, drops me off on exit 6. Now I still had to walk 7 more miles to get to my mom's in the back roads of Rhode Island. It's just like here in East Tennessee. And Bryan, someday you'll come visit. You'll see how wonderful some of these roads are. I mean, you literally have like an inch on either side sometimes, and if you miss the inch, you fall off into somebody's yard. But it's all the goodness, right? It's all the goodness of East Tennessee. So, anyways, I walk. Now I get to my mom's house about 4 in the afternoon, and again, what a blessing. Mom wasn't there, stepdad wasn't there, and my younger brother was staying in her other spare room, and I was downstairs. So I'm like, "Oh, this is a jackpot." So I run and take a quick shower. I heated up some stuff in the microwave, run downstairs, fall asleep. So the next day is Christmas. Now I'm feeling like a complete schmuck, right? I have no gifts for anybody. I have no money or anything. My dad and mom were divorced. My dad was coming over. My sister already made it over. My other brother already made it over. I walk upstairs. My dad pulls in the driveway, and he walks in the house. Now here, I was missing for 3 weeks. And by the way, during that 3-week time, my father fished with one of the top guys at Rhode Island State Police. I did not know this till later. They had the Rhode Island State Police had an APB out on me for 3 weeks looking for me because my father and mother didn't know whether I was dead or alive.
Oh, wow.
Nobody heard from me. Well, we didn't have cell phones back then,
And did they know you were? Did they know you were down in the basement by this point?
Oh, yeah. My mother knew I was living in the basement. Okay. Yeah. She was gracious enough to, that's why I said it was, at least she was, that was much better than living in the cold. I'm very grateful to Mom. And anyway, so I'm sitting on my chair knowing I have no job, no money, no prospects. I'm wearing fake hair. I just spent 3 weeks, in the middle of nowhere. I walked almost 20 miles the day before. Have no car, nothing. My father comes in the house and he says, "Son, listen, we know your mom and I, we don't have a lot of money, but we will do whatever it takes to get you into help that you need so you can save your life." And I look at my dad. That story is in this book right here. Matter of fact, we're going to probably use that as part of a torch for Angel Studios to see if we can do my documentary. My dad says that to me, and I look at him, Bryan and Paul, and I say, "Thanks, Dad, but I don't have a problem." I can only imagine, because when you're writing the movie now, I know how I felt, but when you're writing the movie and when you're writing the book, I'm only telling my story. But when we're writing the movie now, I got to try to figure out how bad and how much pain my mom and dad were in because of me.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine that? I'm sitting there with nothing. Walked almost 20 miles the day before in the freezing cold, and I look at my dad and I say, I don't have a problem. And I share that. Yeah, and I share that story, guys, because I'm sure that somebody watching you guys right now is doing the same exact thing or has done it recently. Right?
Or they're about to.
Oh,
and
yeah,
or they're
absolutely.
about to do that. You are 1,000,000% correct, Bryan. So about 2 weeks later, maybe, I was so sick and tired of explaining to people why I was not doing my syndicated sports show across America anymore, why I was not at the Boston Garden with Larry Bird anymore, why I was not on the field with the Patriots anymore and in the Garden with the Bruins anymore and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm tired of telling people my story. Just take me to the Greyhound bus station, Mom, and let me get on a Greyhound bus and let me go be homeless out of the Greyhound bus station in Fort Lauderdale. It's warmer down there. So can you imagine the pain my mother must have been in driving me 40 minutes or so to the bus station and then having to drive home alone, having no idea where I'm going. And so I get down to Fort
What year was
Lauderdale.
this?
Oh my gosh. Well, I got sober in 1992. So this was about 4 years before that, somewhere around 1988. Because I covered the World Series in 80. Yeah, because I covered the World Series in 87. That's when I stood on the Metrodome when it used to be the Metrodome with Harmon Killebrew. That was 87. So somewhere and then 88 I did the arena football. So it was the beginning of 1990, I believe. The very, very beginning, because I also did a pro basketball.
I was down in Fort Lauderdale at that time.
Oh, were you? So, yeah, you did look familiar to me. You're that guy I asked you for a dang quarter so I could get a cup of coffee at Winchell's Donuts, and you told me to go take a hike. I remember you now. Yes. We're only kidding, folks.
Told me on a good day if I only told you to take a hike in 1988.
Yeah, no doubt, right? The candy store down there on A1A and all that good stuff down there, down on the beach. And boy, oh man,
Summers on the beach. Yeah.
Woo. Oh, the memory. So I tell them I have no problem. I go down there. And then, so back then it was before 9/11. So they actually had lockers at the bus station. And as long as you had 4 quarters, you could put your whole entire life savings of stuff. I had a toiletry kit, whatever. And you could put it in the little lockers at the bus station. But you had to go back every 24 hours. Otherwise, they would throw your stuff out if you didn't put 4 quarters in. So I went down there with just a few bucks. I don't know how much I had, but I had a few. And here's the deal. So I'm there a couple of days, and I start walking up towards Oakland Park Boulevard and in a place called Wilton Manors. And I'm walking up towards Oakland Park. Well, I go past Oakland Park, for any of you know that Fort Lauderdale area. And there's a little Irish pub. And the little Irish pub on the side of it had a tablecloth outside. Well, I grabbed this tablecloth and I walked back because I had seen an apartment complex with only about a 3.5 foot high metal fence so that I could hop over it and lay on the lounge chairs and sleep at night outside. So I didn't have to sleep on the streets. And oddly enough, Bryan and Paul, about, I think it was last year or the year before, I took my wonderful other half, Monique, with me because I wanted to show her the story because she helps produce some things. And as a matter of fact, she's the award-winning editor of my books. I wanted to show her what she had edited. And crazy enough, the same place is still there, and the same dang wooden chairs that were, half of them were missing the pieces and stuff like that. But it was still there, and I was able to take pictures and do a quick video.
Oh, that's good.
I know, that was really cool, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, we went on a tour of, like, I showed her where I was, and let me tell you what, Paul, I don't know when the last time you went down to Fort Lauderdale, but it is nothing like when we used to be down there.
Oh, I know. I
It
left
is.
there about 18 years ago, and I was
Oh
down there
man.
this few months ago for family stuff. But yeah, it's completely different. But yeah, I was down
I
there.
lived on the other side. I was in Port Richey, Florida.
Oh, one of the
We're all
rich guys
Florida
on the
guys.
other side. There you go. That's why.
Yeah, we were so poor. We were on food stamps.
Yeah, we were doing by 92, we were doing homeless ministry down on the strip in Fort Lauderdale.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
we'd get out there at like 10 o'clock at night and we'd hang out with those kids at Covenant House and
Yeah.
provide them with food and stuff. So that was a pretty cool thing. We'd start out in front of Summers at the Rock
Oh,
Club.
Summers, that's the rock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd hang out in front of there and hang out tracks, and then we'd make our way down to work towards Covenant House and spend time with those homeless kids and stuff. It was pretty wild.
Wow. Did you guys remember Rosebuds too? Right up on Oakland Park. There was another place called Rose. Oh, September.
Oh yeah.
What about September's?
I've
Oh,
only
my
been
God.
over to Fort Myers one time, I think, over on that east side. Other than that, I was always on the west.
Okay, so Paul would know, but nonetheless, so bringing
Yeah, I
back
don't remember
memories, Paul.
I remember Rosebuds. Yeah.
September's was pretty
The
much
Button
on
South.
the corner. Oh yeah. Absolutely. Oh, the Button. Yes. Oh man, you're bringing it all back to me here. All right.
Yeah, they had great
So-
shows there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, they used to have Saturday afternoon stuff. It was great. Yes. Oh man. Wow, all this good stuff. I forgot about all that stuff. So here's the story. So at some point in time, I go over and now I'm wearing this hairpiece that I had to pay for while I was in Rhode Island. And I had no more money, and of course, my ego was so big at the time. And you can read, you can read all about it in this book. Let me tell you. So here I was. I'm now showering. So even though I wasn't living in the Greyhound bus station, what I did was there was a Wendy's, Paul, down on Oakland Park Boulevard, just before PCH. And so anyways, I would walk there about 3 miles every day, and it was 99 cents all you could eat salad bar.
Oh, wow.
And so for $1.05, Brian, I would sit there for about an hour or an hour and a half and just eat as much as I could, and then I'd fill my water cup up with the sunflower seeds and raisins, the mix they had, and I'd walk down the street. And then even then, guys, on Sundays, I would get up sweating, just profusely, walk 3 miles, and I would go to church. And I would walk in, and it was funny. Like, there'd be 200 people there, and people would be smelling me and stuff, clearly and stuff. And it was always like God was talking only to me, even though there were all these other people in the church. And so I knew that he was way ahead of me and that he had a plan. I just kept kind of screwing things up.
We're good at that.
And here's the cool thing, Brian. So at one point, I go over, there was an ad, Paul, they used to have these free papers. I forget, it was a Fort Lauderdale Daily or Weekly or something, right in front of 7-Eleven, right down there.
Yeah,
right? So I opened it up one day, and it was a hair club in Pompano Beach. They were the biggest hair porters in America. They were looking for a model to be their new model on TV that they could put a new hairpiece on and stuff. Well, here I am, homeless. I take a bus over to Dixie Canyon in Pompano, and I end up walking another mile, and I go in, and now I'm sweating and stuff because I had just showered, as best I could in the men's room at the Greyhound bus station, put on whatever clean clothes I had. They actually hired me on the spot as the main model for this biggest hair. God's honest truth. Read the story in here, Brian. It's
hey, we got this homeless guy over here.
Yes. Well, they didn't
wild.
know that. I didn't tell them that I was homeless.
Right. But you smelled and you probably looked the part, right?
I did a good enough job, right? And so And so literally, it was either the next day or the day after, we shot this infomercial. So as I joke with all the people, by the way, now I'm very, very heavily involved in recovery. In case you're wondering at home, I do have over 33 years sober. I'm very blessed that happened, and it continues to happen. But back then, so I share in all of my meetings when I share, I talk about, they didn't know that I was homeless at the time. And so they do this thing. So I joke and I say, I was the guy that while you guys were jonesing at 3 a.m, looking around the rugs, trying to find a little speck of dope that you spilt on the ground throughout the night, I was the guy when they're saying, hey, Rob has no hair, but in about 30 minutes, we're going to make Rob look like a Hollywood movie star. Stay tuned to our show. And that was my claim to fame. I was the main model for the biggest hair importer in America on the infomercials. And so, but there came a point, Paul, that I was able to get a car from a friends who came down from Rhode Island, were a band, and they became the house band at Rosebuds. And for those of you who don't know, Rosebuds was a rock club in Fort Lauderdale, a small club up on Oakland Park Boulevard. Anyways, one of them says, hey, I don't need my car during the day. You can borrow it if you want. Well, I started going out to 441, which was about a 25-minute drive from downtown Fort Lauderdale. Mm-hmm. And they had a place, Brian, where you could just bring your Social Security card. You got there at 6 a.m, and if they had work, they hired you. And it was mostly like painting. It was all physical stuff, painting and digging and, that stuff. And you got $25. Yeah, you got $25 for the day. And if you brought people with you, so if I brought the two of you, if you were there as well, you didn't have a car, I'd get $2 extra a piece for driving each one of you. So I'd make $29. And then they give you a check at the end of the day. You go to Circle K, you cash it. Circle K takes $2 or $3 off the top. So on most days I only had 25. So they take it, and then you buy some Doritos and a Pepsi or a Coke or something. I wasn't eating the healthiest at that particular point in time. Health was not my on the top of my list. And you end up working for 8 hours, and you end up with about $17. Mm-hmm. Now, a normal person would kind of save a little bit of that 17 and try to get an apartment or something. No, not Rob. Every time Rob got 17, $18, he found a way to drink it or find a dope dealer that would give him stuff. And so it just went around in a circle till one day. So now, Brian, I'm down on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, and my mind says, what is the point of you living anymore? This is the mental health part of it, right? We're talking about mental health awareness. My mental health said, what is the point of you even living anymore? You have no life, and you're walking up and down this sidewalk, and all you're doing is getting in people's way that have a life. So you might as well just end your life and get out of the way of all these people who actually have a life. And so this aired actually on the 700 Club, guys. They came and did my testimony. It's a 5-minute and 7-second thing you can see. But point is, I was walking over, Paul, to go to Port Everglades, where all the big cruise ships leave out of. If you've ever taken a cruise out of Fort Lauderdale, that's where they are. My goal was to wait for one of the big cruise ships to just start pulling out, and I was going to jump in front of it because it certainly couldn't stop once it started going right away, and I figured the party'd be over. Well, apparently, as you can see me standing here, God had a better plan, and I heard, Brian, for the first time in my life, I heard a voice in my head. I wasn't somebody who heard voices. And the voice said, because I had a pretty good, like I said, broadcasting career before I started to go crazy with my thoughts and drugs and alcohol. But the voice said, why don't you go out to Hollywood and try to make something out of your life? And Paul, guys, Brian, it was like It's a Wonderful Life, where Clarence Oddbody comes to George as Bailey as he's ready to jump off the bridge because he thinks his life has no purpose. Mm-hmm. And Clarence starts going through all these wonderful things about George did and how he helped the community, even when he was a little kid, and he decided not to bring the pills to the guy and all this stuff, right? And for some reason, I decided to go back and I sat on Fort Lauderdale Beach and I sat there and I'm like, I don't know where that came from. I don't know what you want me to do, God. I mean, I'm done. You know, this party's over. Paul, I walk directly across the street to the 7-Eleven. And again, the free newspaper stand was right there. And there was one on top of it. Somebody had pulled one out, left it on top. I open it up, Ryan. Here's another crazy miracle. There's a guy looking for someone to drive his Crown Victoria from Fort Lauderdale up to Providence, Rhode Island, my hometown.
Wow.
They'll give you $100 in gas. Now, mind you, this is 30 some odd years ago. So gas was what, $1.50 or something. So 100 was more than enough. And $200 cash once you delivered the car. You only had 3 days to get it there. Now, mind you, if the two of us or three of us were driving, it's a 24-hour drive. You're making it in one day.
Right.
So I had 3 days to get there. So I called this guy. Out of the blue, I found a quarter or whatever on the ground. They had phone booths back then. You could, most of the time, you could just stick your finger in the change thing and you'd find a quarter.
Find a quarter, yeah.
Right, exactly.
I got like $12 out of one time when I was working at a Denny's restaurant during a hurricane.
Dang.
I had a butter knife and I'm sitting there right into my hand.
So 12 of them, that's $3. So Paul, what do you think? If he gave each one of us $1, he'd still have $1 too. So we'd be all even here. We'd be doing good here. That'd
be nice. Yeah. So get your butter knife ready, man. Make us some money.
We'll need a flux capacitor though, because that was back in the 90s or the 80s. Back in the 80s.
Good stuff. So yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, anyways. So I call the guy. And he says, come get my car tomorrow. So what are the odds one more time? God tells me not to jump, or he has an angel tell me somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Then he has a car ride and he's paying me to take the car ride. Right?
Forget Uber.
All that stuff didn't even, that was light years away, right?
Yep.
And so I get up to Rhode Island, and the guy that I gave the car to even gives me a ride 45 minutes to my mother's house again.
Wow.
So I get back up there and I get some jobs and stuff. And all of a sudden, fast forward, it's the night after Christmas, 1992. And I had met a gal at my brother's wedding. Her name is Sherry. We're still wonderful friends today. But we started dating, and then it was the night after Thanksgiving, 1992. She wanted to go to her old high school reunion. I said, I'm not paying $35 to go watch you drool over your ex-boyfriend. Just being real with her, right? And so I said, screw it. You go do whatever you want. I'm going to go do what I want. Now, mind you, at the time, I was living in my friend Steve's basement now. I didn't go back to my mom's. I went to hers for like a night, and then my friend Steve let me stay in his basement in the same hometown. And he also had this beat-up old pickup truck. You guys would laugh. It looked like the circus mobile, because in Rhode Island what happens, and maybe you guys in Michigan too, Brian, with all the salt on the road in the wintertime, it eats away the quarter panels on the cars, and you've got to have fiberglass, fix it and all that. Well, he had this work truck that had like 10 different colors of fiberglass on it. So here I am with this truck, and I tell Sherry, I said, you just go do what the heck you want. I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a beer. So I go to this pub in my old hometown. Well, I wasn't willing to spend $35, so I end up spending $80 drinking that night. Now, mind you, in today's day and age, that's not too much. But back then, when everything was $1.50 and dollar shots, that was a lot of booze. So literally, I get in Steve's truck, this beat-up old truck, and all I had to do was take a left-hand turn up this back road, take a right-hand turn. I would have been at his house in 5 minutes. I decide that at 2:30 in the morning, I am going to go see what Cheryl is doing. Well, it proves to be a God shot. because I drive like the worst maniac on planet Earth. I deserve to get stopped for sure. Thank God I did not hurt or injure anyone at all. I get literally 200 yards from the Warwick, Rhode Island police station at 2:30 in the morning, and I get pull over. And I'm like, oh, so they pull me in there, and I fail the breathalyzer by 1/10 of a point or whatever the lowest margin is, right? Doesn't matter. I failed. They stick me in the holding cell for a couple hours. They let me call Cheryl. I call her at 4:30 in the morning. The fact that she even answered the dang phone was a miracle. She comes down to the police station, picks me up. She's about 20 feet in front of me, and I look at her and I go, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm homeless. I'm penniless. I just can't do it. I'm done. And she looks at me and goes, I can smell you from here. And I'm like, thanks, Cheryl. So here's one of the coolest things, Bryan and Paul. I'm going to show you this picture here really quick. And so, so many people, especially when they get stopped and they're in recovery, and they're like, yeah, if that cop hadn't have stopped me, I'd be okay and nothing would have happened. I had that, that cop was a jerk and this and that and blah, blah, blah. No, if I'm driving drunk, it's on me.
Yep.
If I get stopped, well, then I shouldn't have been driving. But so many people go into recovery, and like I said, I've been very active for a good part of the 33 years that I've been sober, and I've helped a lot of people, celebrities in Hollywood, CEOs, whatever, Alaska, Florida, Rhode Island, down here in Tennessee. Now I'm very involved. So wherever it might be, and you listen to people tell their stories, and it's always somebody else's fault.
Yep.
And it's not until I, as a man or a gal, as a woman, puts on our big boy or big girl pants and looks in the mirror and says, what am I going to do to finally change my life?
Yep.
And fortunately for me, I was stopped. And take a look at this guy. That is Officer Bud Latham of the Warwick, Rhode Island Police Department. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell in the book, but the dude is as big as any offensive lineman, for the Tennessee Titans, right? Or the Detroit Lions.
Nope.
As it, what
Buccaneers.
Oh, Tampa Bay. There you go. So I'm only 5'9". This dude is big, dude, right? Anyways, I went back because my dad had passed a few years ago, and it was 3 years ago because I was 30 years sober at the time. And I said, I got this thought in my head, I should go thank the officer that stopped me that night, because if he hadn't have stopped me, the way I was driving, there's no telling what might have happened.
Yep.
So I deserved to get pulled off the road, and thank God he pulled me off the road, right? Yep. So I call the police station, and they go, well, we'll have to look him up because he's retired. They all do like 20 and retire, right? And this was 30 years later. Literally the next morning, 8 o'clock, this police station calls up and says, we found it on microfilm. The guy that arrested you, here's his name. Right now, how cool is this? He goes. His real name is Robert. My name. He goes by the nickname of Bud. My dad was Captain Bud, fisherman, and he moved to my hometown where my mother was the #1 real estate agent for decades. And I called this guy via Facebook. I found he had a real estate office. So I called the office. He answers. And I said, do you know this lady? He said, yeah. He goes, she helped me change some things and stuff. And now he's a multimillionaire, this guy.
Wow.
So unknowingly, because my mother has a different last name than mine, the cop that pulled me over and saved my life, my mother ended up helping him to have a wonderful real estate career in which he has done quite well for himself. Huh. And it's like, how cool is that, right? And so we're standing there talking for a couple of minutes, and my wonderful other half, Monique, is taking pictures for us and a little bit of video. And while I'm talking to him, all of a sudden he starts getting tears in his eyes. This big guy, not giant ones, but enough. And he says, man, that was really cool of you. He goes, everybody just wants to come over here and thank me. He goes, everybody just wants to tell us how bad we suck. And I said, well, all I can tell you is this, Officer Bud, because you had the courage to do your job and serve and protect the community of Rhode Island that night against me, this deviant who should have never been on the road in the first place. And I deserved whatever you did, which all he did was put me in handcuffs. He could have walked me across the street. We were so close. But I said, because of that, I have been very, very heavily involved in the sobriety community in California, where I was living before Tennessee. Then I went up to Alaska, and I'm still to this day, 12 years later, still very involved on a weekly basis up there. And now here in Tennessee. And I said, because of you, I've been able to help hundreds of people have better lives, because you saved mine. And in turn, Officer Bud, those hundreds of people have turned around and helped hundreds of others.
Yep.
So your one act of doing the job that you were paid to do and doing it well, you have no idea how many lives that you've positively affected by that one simple action that night. And that's what I try to tell people, Bryan and Paul, is that, and like you guys are doing this podcast, you have no idea every week who's watching, who's listening.
Yep.
There's people that you will never meet in your life, as I'm sure you already know, that you've touched their hearts and they're living differently today because of things they've heard on your show.
Well, that's the hope. Yeah, absolutely.
It's good to hear every once in a while we get a story, which is cool because it's encouraging.
Well, here's the deal, Bryan. So I spoke at a place in Studio City. There's a place, there's a church out there. They call it Moore Park because it's actually Moore Park Street, but it's a place where, basically every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the movie industry goes to meetings and stuff, right? And so I'm there one day and I'm sharing my story. They asked me to lead, so I do a 10-minute lead, and then other people chip in afterwards. But I lead and I go home. 7 years later, I'm standing at the 99-cent store right next to Universal Studios on Lancashire Boulevard, and a dude comes walking up to me, and he goes, "Hey, Rob, hey," he goes, "Listen, man, you don't know me from a hole in the wall, but 7 years ago, you were speaking at Moore Park, and I was sitting in the back against the wall where they put the chairs away," and he said, "My life was a mess." And he said, "I heard you share about how you were living your life with God and this kind of stuff." And he goes, "I just want to tell you," he said, "and I never came up and thanked you that day at all. I just blew out because I was so miserable at the time." He goes, "But I see you here now. I had to come and thank you." He said, "Because of what you shared, I've been living the life that you shared about the way to live your life. And now I have a wife, 2 kids. I have this wonderful, glorious life. I have a wonderful job. And I just wanted to shake your hand and say thank you."
Man, that is so incredible.
So that's why I learned a long time ago, Bryan and Paul, is that whatever you do, even if you're having the worst day ever, like the day my dad died or the day my dog died, the things that are precious to us, or jobs lost, or whatever it is, there's some joy that I got to find in something during that day. And I need to bring positivity into something during that day, whatever it is I'm doing. Even if it's shaking a veteran's hand as I'm walking into the grocery store and thanking them for their service and getting out of my own head, right?
Yep.
Well, here's the cool thing on that one, Bryan. This is what I do: a lot of meditation in the morning. I get up, I pray, I meditate for an hour, 2 hours or so. And so I get a lot of really cool thoughts. And so one of them was, this one here just elevated things. Names are very, very important.
Yep.
So I learned names because we all, like, if I just looked at the two of you guys, "Hey guys, how you doing?" If I saw you at the, the ice cream shop, whatever, "Hey guys, how you doing?" I go, "Hey, Paul, Bryan, what's going on, guys?" See, it just enlightens you because you feel that much more value just because of somebody called you by your name.
Yep.
So now what I do when I meet veterans is I say, "Hi, thank you for your service." And they always go, "You're welcome. Glad to do it." And then I take it one step further now, and this really is cool. I say, "By the way, what is your first name?" Now, you would never know that there were so many Jacks that fought in World War II, but there's a whole lot of Jacks that fought in World War II. But nobody has ever said, "What do you want to know my first name for?" Right? They always say Jack, Chip, Kurt, whatever it is. And then I get to say, "Jack, thank you. Robert, thank you again for your service. And then it just doubles and then they look at you while they're walking away. Like, was this some weirdo and it was like, wow, that never happened before. So we get to be the person that God created us to be by doing small little acts of kindness.
I did that the other day, just yesterday when I went to Menards.
Yeah.
And there were three older ladies putting all their stuff away and they were smiling and everything. So I just walked up to them and said, hey, how you ladies doing? I cracked some kind of dad joke and they laughed, and just it made a good day for all of us. I thought I felt good after doing it, and they went away. They thanked me. So, and they were smiling even more. So,
well, here's the weirdest thing. I was just telling somebody this story the other day, Brian. I was in San Diego before I moved out here. One of the last things I did, I was in a Trader Joe's, and they have their name tags on their shirt. But even though they have their name tags, still most people don't even ever call them by their name. They're just like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I never thought of that.
I'm in there one Saturday at this place, never been into this one, down in San Diego. And there was a young kid, maybe he was 18, 19 years old, somewhere in that range, no older than that. And he's the cashier. So I get to the cashier and I see his name, Chris. So I go, hey, Chris, how you doing? And he doesn't respond to me. And he starts ringing the stuff up. I said, so Chris, how's your day going? And he's like, what? I said, Chris. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, that's your name, isn't it? Or are you borrowing somebody else's name tag today? And he's like, well, yeah, no, that's my name, sir, but nobody ever calls us our name. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah. I said, even with your tag on? He goes, no, nobody ever calls us by our name. He goes, they just grab their stuff and go. And I said, wow, that's interesting. I said, well, I learned that names are very important, and you're obviously a wonderful human being, and I wanted to recognize you. He leans over, and he says, sir, he says, any chance, I know it's really busy, but any chance you could walk around after you cash out and get back in line and do that again? And that right there taught me the value of how powerful just learning somebody's name and recognizing them for who they are in this world, how much that can change them. It's the simplest of all things, right, Paul?
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
It's huge because when I transplanted to where I'm at now because it's my wife's family and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, we went to this big church, Emmanuel Church, and for the longest time, 2-3 years, I was Candy's husband. Was my wife's name. And one day, I'm in church walking down the hall, and hey, Brian. I'm like, talking to me?
Right?
First time I wasn't just Candy's husband.
Right?
So
And that was cool, right?
Yeah. Stop me dead in my tracks.
That's what I'm saying. So listen, I'm in the grocery store the other day here in East Tennessee, and normally I have a basket because I get enough stuff for a basket. But that day I just wanted to get a couple of things, so I just grabbed one of the little. When I say basket, I mean the ones you push. But this one, I grabbed one of the little green baskets, right? And I put it up on the counter at the cashier. There was somebody in front of me, so I put the bar thing out, whatever it is, the plastic divider. Put my stuff down and take it out, put it on the counter. And the lady, while she's checking the other lady out, the cashier says to me, thank you for unloading your basket. And I said, oh, okay, you're welcome. And so I get to my turn. The other lady cashes out. I get there and I said, that was nice of you to thank me for emptying my basket, but everybody does that, right? And she looks at me, and the bagger that was with her as well both looked at me and shook their heads no. And they said, 95% of everybody that puts a basket up there expects us to empty it for them.
Wow.
I said, are you kidding me? She
That's
said,
crazy.
no. She said, you're one of a very, very few that has ever, she said, I've been here for like 25, 30 years. You're one of the few that has ever emptied your basket without making us do it for them.
I always do that.
Yeah, I always do it. I didn't even consider
I
not
thought
doing
so
that.
too. But then the weird part was I went to another different grocery chain just a couple days ago, right? A couple days after that. And I put the basket up there and I said, it was weird. I was at this other place yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever. And I said, this happened. And again, The cashier and the bagger look at me and go, nope. Most everybody just sticks the thing up on the thing and lets us empty it out for them. I said, well, that's weird.
That is
I said,
weird.
I would never do that to somebody else. And they said, well, most people do.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm like,
unbelievable.
it's amazing how the little smallest things people remember one way or the other, right? Good or bad.
Hey,
Well,
Rob.
it's funny because, grocery stores, I've heard this about, and my wife's in the restaurant business, so she sees it firsthand. Sunday after church, worst experience for service workers. They get treated horribly by the after church crowd. And that just is so uncanny to me. You just came out of a place worshiping God, and then you treat people like garbage.
Exactly.
How was that a thing?
That's bad.
It is crazy, and that is your thing. I mean, I used to watch people. I've been a volunteer at churches for years, and I would watch people leave the parking lot, and they just get out. Yeah, I love you, Jesus, and I love you, I love you, I love you. They get in their car, they pull out, and somebody cuts in front of them. They're blowing the horn, they're flipping them off, they're yelling, "Yeah, you want to go at it?" And I'm like, you just left all this peace and serenity.
It's uncanny.
But that's why prayer and meditation for me is so big in the morning. If you start your day with peace, it makes it so much better and easier to get through this world. Because here's the bottom line, right, Bryan and Paul? If I leave my driveway, if you leave your driveway, the world is going to happen.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to happen because it happens the way it happens.
Right.
The people that are driving like fools did not get out of bed and go, hey, I'm going to, there's this Bryan and Rob and Paul, and I'm going to really tick them off today. They're going to be driving up the 40 freeway, and I'm just going to be following them on their bumper, and I'm going to be blowing my horn and cutting them off and slamming my brakes on. No, they're not thinking about us. They don't even know we exist on planet Earth.
Nope.
They're in their own world. The people at the grocery store, they see you standing there with 2 items and they race their cart up in front of you and they got 65 items. And it's like, what? And, so I've accepted the world as it is. And then I set healthy boundaries. Like I don't let people abuse me. So Mental Health Month, here we're sharing about this tonight, right? On May.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going through tough times, no is a very acceptable answer.
Yes.
And no without an explanation. No with love, without an explanation. Rob, if you'll walk to Michigan, I'll take you fishing out there on the Great Lakes. It's like, thank you, Bryan, but no.
That's right. We're not going fishing.
Send me a plane ticket. I'll come, but it's interesting. So many people are afraid to stick up for themselves. And to say no, and they feel like I got to please everybody. That's not what God put us here to do.
Nope.
No.
He put us here. All I can ever be is the best Rob that I can be. I'm not the president. I don't own the big businesses. I don't have the billions of dollars. The only thing I can change is how I treat you guys right now on this podcast. Mm-hmm. Right? How do I treat my wonderful other half and my beautiful cat when I get done with this podcast? How do I treat the people tomorrow morning in my recovery meeting when I go there?
Yep.
That's how do I drive down the road to get there? Right?
Are you being a light or are you hiding it under a bushel?
That's a good one. That's a good one. And it's like, I don't have to like the way all the stuff in the world works, and neither does anybody else.
I don't.
But I have to. But if the law says you can only go 70 and you're going 100, there was a guy the other day here in East Tennessee. I don't know if you saw this on the news, Paul, but anyways, there was a guy who got caught driving the wrong way down a street, and he got arrested for DUI and stuff, and he's appealing the guilty decision put upon him by the court. It's like, what part of driving? I mean, you were in the driver's seat. The car was going down the road.
But that's advice of an attorney. The system is like a circus, dude. I won't even get into it.
Yes. So here's the cool thing. So first of all, I got to say, for those of you who have been watching and you want to know the whole story, I'll tell you really quick. So my brother David, when I was living on the Greyhound bus station, my brother David helped me. And when I got back to Rhode Island stuff, he was helping me out when I was living in Steve's basement and stuff. David had 4 years sober. He gets a beautiful baby daughter. He had a tile and flooring company up in Rhode Island. He had a wonderful wife, all this stuff going for him. He had everything that I would want, right? As a sober human being. He was my younger brother. But this disease of alcoholism or drugs or any of that, so whatever it might be, gambling for people that gamble away their whole life, and they don't feed the family, whatever it might be, right?
Right.
Cunning, baffling, and powerful. So at 4 years sober, David, with all of this goodness, him and his wife look at each other and they think, well, we should be able to drink like the normal alcoholic or the normal person because they've been sober for 4 years.
Right.
Well, David did at 28, and 8 months later, we buried him.
Wow.
And he left behind, I'll see if I can find his beautiful picture. He left behind his amazing, wonderful, oh, by the way, check this out. This is one of the stories in here. I just came across this picture in the book. Check this out. Now, you guys will not believe this because it does look pretty dang good. That is actually me with my very first hairpiece in Hollywood.
Look at that stud.
How's that blonde, blue-eyed stud puppy there, right? That's my hairpiece. And so, anyways, I want to show you a picture of my glorious brother, 28 years old, New England Gold Gloves boxing champion, just amazing person. He was the kind of guy, second he walked in the room, the whole room lit up. And this is my brother David. And David left us at 28 and left behind his beautiful daughter and now ex-wife and stuff, obviously, but just crazy. And so, it's something. Here's the greatest thing here's my thing about mental health. If when we were all born, God said, when you all turn 18, you're all going to have to deal with something in life that you're not going to like, but I'll let you choose. And God says you can either have cancer or Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis.
I'll be right back.
Or you can be an alcoholic or a drug addict. Knowing what I know and having watched my family members with cancer leave us and also with MS and Parkinson's. Oh, that one has been a killer for my stepmom, my aunt, just horrible. So, but with alcoholism, Paul, I get to play my own doctor. I get to say, I am a drunk. I need to stop doing what I'm doing. What can I do? And there's all kinds of free help out there. I could go to a 12-step program, but the 12-step program works for me, but it doesn't work for everybody. Some people it works for pretty good, but they need some therapy or they need to still spend time with their pastor or someone else. And there are other programs to help people out there that are free. That's the amazing part. I get to be a better human being today. If today was my first day stopping drinking or drugging or whatever, I can be a better man today than I was yesterday if I choose to do the work to be a better man. Right? It just doesn't happen. Right? All the stuff that you do, a podcast host and stuff, surely you came on your first time and it was probably a pretty good podcast, but it's not as good as it is today for you, right?
No, it wasn't great the first time. We learned a lot of stuff going through this.
Absolutely.
But I'll tell you, being down in South Florida about the same time that you were down there going through all that stuff, God was dealing with me with alcohol issues. My drinking was escalating, and I had a love affair with Jack Daniels for a little while. And
Jose, my buddy was Jose.
And it got to a place where I was either going to be married or I was going to drink. And I had a vision of myself about this age now, laying on a bench with urine in my pants. And here's what I said. That's okay.
See?
So that's okay. And so I woke up on the floor on New Year's Day from a party we had. And I don't remember exactly what year it was, early 90s. And I just prayed, man. I was like, I don't want to quit, but if you want me to quit, God, you got to quit me, because I know I'm not going to be married for much longer if I don't get this under control. And that was it, man. So I'm one of these guys that the Lord just delivered it. But I know that there's people in recovery. I know that that's a huge thing, an important thing. So God bless you for what you're doing with that, for sure.
Well, and I appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear your story too. So, that's good stuff. And, I get up every morning and I ask God, how do I be of maximum service to you and my fellows? What can I do to be a better man in this community? Right. And we never know who it's going to be, whether it's Chris in San Diego, whether it's the clerk over here, on Middlebrook Pike in East Tennessee, where I just empty my stuff out of my basket. I mean, you never know what it is. Mm-hmm. But I promise you one thing, God does not ever ask us to do anything completely miraculous. He's the guy of miracles. He's the God that saves people. None of us are ever going to save another human being. We don't have the ability, but we do have the ability to shine a light and open their eyes and ears where they say, well, wait a minute, this bald guy was able to change his life. This guy with a lot of hair was able to change his life. Well, maybe me with a little bit of hair can, have a better life. I mean, who knows, whatever the rationalization is behind it, right?
How about people with ponytails?
Oh, there you go. How cool is that, man? I always wanted. You guys are making me so jealous here. I'm telling you. But so about that. Okay, so in this book, I showed you the picture of me and my first hairpiece. So we'll leave it at that. But so this is the greatest thing that I always pray for people. And if you're watching right now, I pray if you're in the position that I was in or Paul was in, that Paul was in. And if you're in that position where we were thinking crazy stuff and maybe we should just end it all and it's just too much and all this, here's the deal. So 10 years sober, I'm out. By the way, 11 months after I got sober, my dad gives me a car in Rhode Island. And this is crazy, guys. It was a 1984 Chevy Chevette, two-tone paint. Back in the old days when they had the Pintos and those types of cars with like the dark paint, light paint,
I had a
dark
Chevette.
paint, right?
My mom had a Chevette. Yeah.
Hatchback.
Yep.
No electric windows, roll-up windows, no air conditioning.
And in Florida, your dashboard is made out of that stuff, and it gets all chalky and.
Oh man!
And that big leather seat.
Oh. Jeez. Oh my gosh. If you don't know what we're talking about, look one up. I'm sure there's plenty of information on the internet. Well, my dad was gracious enough to give me the car. And listen, guys, this was it. And I'm not a car guy, so but it was a five-speed diesel engine in a Chevy a Chevy Chevette.
Oh, mine was automatic.
And that would have been nice. And because it was diesel, it spewed all over the place. This black, smoke. And so my dad was gracious enough to give me that when I was about 8 or 9 months sober. I was able to get a job as a waiter. I paid off bills that I owed, got enough money in my pocket, and I drove across to California. And I made it in that car with driving across the Arizona desert and Texas. Wow. And it was hot. And if it started raining, you had to pull the car over the side of the road and roll up the windows. And, it was crazy. But here's the big deal. We were talking about the hair, and you guys with your hair and my with no hair, right? So what happened, I'm 10 years sober, and I had been blessed out in Hollywood. After a while, I started working on these TV shopping networks, selling jewelry and stuff. And what happened was I had to keep putting this thing on. They had it where there was a clip on the hairpiece, and then a clip on the hairpiece, and a clip, and then a piece of double-sided tape in the front. and you clip that to the hair that was remaining on the side of your head, right? So every day I spent 45 minutes in my mirror trying to blow dry and make this fake hair not look fake. And then what would happen is the ends would start getting light on it, and I have to go to CVS or whatever and grab some coloring and try to color the sides of the hairpiece so it matched my hair. It was a project, Paul. I mean, I spent, Bryan, I'm telling you, I spent so much time, wasted time, right? So then
look at all that.
Oh my gosh, these guys. Oh man.
And the gray is starting to come back in. I just had it colored.
Can I call my other half and just have her go get the biggest knife we have in the kitchen and just stick it right here?
No, don't, because by the time I'm Bryan's age, I'm going to look more like you than Bryan. I'm starting thin.
So here's the deal. So I started getting, on my days off, I would wear a baseball hat to my recovery meetings. And one day my sponsor comes in and he says, "Hey, I was just talking to somebody about you yesterday." And the guy said, "Oh, you mean the guy with the baseball hat?" Because that's how they remember. Now, they weren't saying anything bad, right? But that's how they always saw me.
Mm-hmm.
But it hit me, Paul and Bryan, why I was wearing the baseball hat. I was wearing the baseball hat because on my days off, I didn't want to spend 45 minutes trying to make this fake thing look real. So I just put a baseball cap on.
There you go. Covers everything.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it hit me. And I said, you know what? I think I got to get rid of this thing, right? But, bald at the time, 30 years ago, was not the big thing yet, right? Now it's, but it wasn't, it was just kind of getting there, right? And so I wore that hairpiece, and I share this when I speak 45-minute speeches at some of the recovery meetings I go to, and I get asked to speak. I wore that because I thought that I had to look like you expected me to look.
Mm.
Now, I had no clue on planet Earth, guys, what you expected me to look like. I just knew that bald was not the answer. There was no way I was ever going to meet a woman. There was no way I was going to get a job. There was no way, all this negative stuff, if I was bald. It wasn't going to happen. So here I am trying to be somebody that I wasn't, rather than just being the man that God created me to be, and realizing that he creates every single one of us amazingly special in his image, and he has a special deal for each one of us. And he created us with all these special different talents. We don't all have the same talents because that would be boring. Yep. And we don't all look the same because that'd be pretty boring. Mm-hmm. So he gives us all our uniqueness, right? And I always laugh at people when I lived in Hollywood. Everybody's like, I want to be the next Brad Pitt. I want to be the next Jennifer Aniston. I said, but you're the only one of you out of all the billions of people in the world. Why do you want to be someone else?
Good point.
You were created in your uniqueness. You're the only one. So even if you had twin sisters or your triplets or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
They still don't smell exactly the things the way you smell them. They still don't taste the things. They still don't feel the same. We're all different.
Yep.
So until I learn to embrace my uniqueness, then my mental health stays kind of unmental. Mentally more, than I want it to be. Unstable and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So one day, this gal calls me up. I'm now 10 years sober. This gal calls me and says, "Hey, can you help me out? I'm having a hard time with my husband and blah, blah, blah. Can I get some advice?" So we go to this Chinese restaurant in North Hollywood. And while we're there, I go, you know what? I finally had enough. And I'm like, would you come back to my apartment? I used to live right near Universal Studios. I said, will you come over to my apartment and check something out for me? So she comes over and I go into the bathroom and I take this thing off and I came out and I just put my hands around the side of my head to cover the rest of my hair. And she goes, "Oh my God, I never knew that." She goes, "Why don't you just shave it off?" And I'm like, that's a big deal, right? And so there was literally a barber shop right across the street, one with the old barber pole, like an old, and she goes, "If you'll go over there, I'll go over there with you. I'll call my husband, tell him I'll be a few minutes late. I'll go with you." All right. So I go over there, sit down in the chair. The guy goes, "What do you want?" I go, "Please take this thing off. And I just want to shave the rest of it off." Well, he shaves it off, and I didn't know what to think, right? I'm petrified. So now I've got a tan face because I lived in
Wait,
Southern California, and I got a white head. So here's the thing, Brian. Monday night, I was on national TV, technically with a full head of hair. Tuesday, now I look like this, but this is dark brown and this is white. So what happened was really weird. I
The
literally
gig is
went,
up.
I went a quarter mile. Talk about the gig is up, but how cool is this? You are correct. I went down about a quarter mile to my post office, opened up my box to get my mail. There's only one thing in the mailbox, Paul and Brian, and it is a magazine that somebody just sent me out of the blue, some marketing company. And the front cover was just a bald guy's head saying soaring to new heights.
wow.
5 minutes after I did this, right? I walked by the counter, and Connie was one of the postal workers, checking people out, one of the clerks. And I walked by, and she's got a customer there, and I've been going there for like 10 years or so. And I walk by, and all of a sudden I hear, "I love it." And I look over, and she goes, "It looks great." And I'm like, she's dealing with a customer, and she noticed it was me, right?
Wow.
And so that was some pretty cool stuff. So I call up my friend Melissa, God bless her. She's in heaven watching down. She was sober, but she ended up getting breast cancer that took her. But I call her up. I say, "Melissa, you'll never believe it. I finally got rid of the hair. It's done, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Oh, I'm so happy for you." I said, "Well, the problem is I got to go on TV in 3 hours, and my face is all brown and my head's all white." So she goes, "Come over here. I've got some bronzing tanning lotion."
Oh, no.
Literally, Brian. So I go over to her house a couple miles away, and she bronzes my head, trying to match everything as close as possible. And then she's like, "Here, just take the spray stuff in case you need it." So here it is. I drive to this place. It was called Glendale Studios, next town over from Burbank. And I go on the air, and I walk in the studio, and there's like 25, 28 phone bank operators right there, and the cameras. And I walk in, and I've got my suit and tie on, and the whole place looks at me in complete silence. So either they were wondering, who the heck is this guy in here? Or they realized that it was me and I'd finally done something. So they go on doing their thing, and the host on before me recognizes me, and he goes, "Oh my." And he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen," so he's on national TV. He goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, do not move. In about 3 minutes, you're going to see something across America that you've never seen before." So he gets done and says goodnight. It's now my turn. So I simply step in front of the camera, all the phone banks in front of me. And guys, I just stood there like this with my sport coat and tie. And I just stood there for between a minute and 2 minutes.
Wow.
And I didn't say a word. The phone started going crazy. And Bryan and Paul, it felt like 25,000 tons of weight had just fallen off of me. At that moment, I became comfortable in my own skin as the man that God created me to be. And now there was nothing between me and him. And ever since that day, my life has been a zillion times different. And so my prayer, if you're watching right now, or if you have a loved one that's going through a hard time, my prayer is that you will at some point in time do the work you need to do to feel comfortable in your own skin, because there is nothing more invigorating than going out into the world and not caring what people think. As long as I leave my house with the mindset of what can I add positive into the world this day. And as long as I'm the best Rob that I can be, that doesn't mean perfect.
Nope.
Right.
Every day is going to be different. Some days you might as well just stay home and sleep. I tell people that. It's like, just stay home. Why go into the world and tick people off when you can just stay home, And better to lie that you're sick and stay home than to go out into the world being miserable and driving like a maniac and swearing at people and treating, and all that. But I can't even tell you how that changed my life. And the funniest thing was this: that night, in 15 years of being on TV selling jewelry and gemstones, it was my greatest sales night ever by $100,000.
Wow.
The night that I just became me, and I was so petrified for all these years of being me. It took me all that time, from the time that I was going to jump off the bridge in Fort Lauderdale to a little bit more drinking and partying, to 10 years of sobriety, to realizing that each one of us in our own individual ways has extreme value to add to this world.
Yeah, 100%.
And we just need to be our best version of ourselves.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'll tell you, similar experience. I was working in middle management at the company I work for, and I wanted to look the part. So I cut all my hair off, and I was dressing differently. And I hated, I'd look in the mirror and I'd hate who I looked like. I hated it. I got a head injury. And I lost all of my emotions for about 6 months.
Wow.
And I just didn't care about anything anymore. So I grew my goatee out real long, and I had my head shaved at the time. And I was like, you know what, man? I don't care anymore. I'm just going to grow my hair out again. And if it hurts my career, it hurts my career. I'm going to be. And then God opened up doors for ministry. And we had, we started, me and Victor Griffin from Plates of Skulls started Metal Mission of Knoxville. You saw the banner at the event a couple weeks ago. And it just, God was just said, finally, be you.
Yes.
And I'll use you.
Yes.
And it's the same thing, opposite outcome, but opposite road, but same outcome.
Yeah.
And so I get it, man. I get it 100%. And if you're watching this and you're struggling with trying to fit a mold because your church is telling you how you should look, or your job or whatever, the people around you are telling you how you should look and dress, be you that God made you to be, because he's going to use that to reach people that others can't reach.
Yes.
And
That's why I wrote that song on our second album called Who I Am, that my daughter sings with Benjamin Birdsong, because it's about peer pressure.
Wow. Yes.
She was only 14 doing the keyboards and doing her vocals on that album for us. It was really cool.
Wow.
But peer pressure is a big thing, and it goes into adulthood too. So don't be ashamed of it. Do like Rob did. Find that breakout moment where God's going to use you no matter what we look like, right? Because when I was 10 and a half, I was hitting the left eye with a plastic hockey puck.
Ooh.
I had to take 10 different medications. I had 9 different surgeries over my lifetime. And now I'm just used to it. Now I have an artificial eye in there because the other one was going to kill me. You have a pressure in your eyes.
Yes. Yes.
And the pressure was so high that it was a humid day. And I went out to play basketball and I shot the ball like this up, and I pump faked because the guy was going to block the shot, and he missed the ball and hit my eye, and I had a global rupture.
Oof.
But it actually felt good because all that pressure just released.
Really?
Yeah, it was weird.
So you have one glass eye?
Plastic. They don't do glass anymore.
Wow. Just at the event that Paul and I were at just a week or two ago, there was a gal there. Christine came from Missouri.
Okay.
She shared her story. She has 2 artificial. Excuse me. Sorry. She has 2 artificial eyes because she had been, talk about never going too low to be useful in God's world. Her foster mother sold her into sex slavery at 15 years old for $2,500.
Wow.
She was beaten, battered, and abused for 21 years before she finally was able to escape. And then there was so much pressure on her brain, and she had a choice. Talk about this choice, Paul, with yours as well. I'm sure, it's tough choices, obviously, when we're giving up something that's really a valuable part of one of the most valuable parts of our life, right? So she ends up getting away out of the thing and escaping one night. And so she meets a boyfriend. She ends up getting pregnant, and she goes to the hospital because she started going blind. The doctor says, well, we can cure your blindness. We have a pill that will do that you're blind because of the inflammation on your brain. And we have a pill that will cure that. He said, the problem is it will kill your baby.
Oh, wow.
So she made the decision to go and have the baby and go blind rather than lose her child. And then, like your situation, it became so painful that they eventually had to take her regular eyes out, and now she has two. That's interesting that within a 2-week time period that I'm meeting two folks. So the point is, even in the condition that you're in with only one eye, you're sitting here, you're going for life, right? You're just like Christine. You're not sitting on the pity party going, yeah, well, you just don't know my story. Well, yeah, we know your story. You know what God wants you to do with that dang story? Tell it.
Yep.
Right? The more, the merrier.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm 60 now, and it happened when I was 10 and a half.
Wow. You've lived your whole life with one eye, basically?
Oh, I've schooled people on the basketball court, the football field. They didn't even know it.
Wow, that is beyond incredible. So here's this amazing story that you've got. Yeah, and now she's also, same thing as you, you're doing podcasts and music and stuff. She is an author, a speaker. She's traveling around, sharing her story and stuff and trying to help people and stuff. And so here we are, 3 guys here. If I've heard us all right, we've all gone through some struggles in different areas of our life. And one of us has basically, most of his whole life has lived without one eye and yet none of us are sitting here on the pity pot whining that life is not perfect.
Right.
And you don't get 33 years sober. You don't get to be where you are with one eye without people kicking you in the groin, without getting knocked over the head while you're walking down the sidewalk and people just go, oh, too bad, and those are metaphors, of course, right? But you understand what I'm saying is like you go through life, and even in the Bible, I'm not a theologian, but God says, and this is the crazy part, right? Consider trials and tribulations to be blessings. Whoa, How does that happen, Lord?
And then you've got the Bible verse, all things work together.
That is on my wall in the other room, Romans 8:28. It is right on the wall. And Christine shared, as you have learned, Bryan, she shared, who would have known that in my losing of my eyesight is when I ran closer to Jesus, not run away and badmouth him, but I ran to him, embracing him, that he saved my life, saved my daughter, and gave me an opportunity to continue going on.
Well, we have to make the decision if we want to live a Christ-centered, fulfilled life, or be in the dumps all the time and just complain. And I just chose not to complain. I mean, I may have complained.
Don't we all?
Yep.
But that doesn't define us. That's the point.
Right.
The complaining, it happens just like we fall down sometimes.
And get back up again.
Yeah, but that doesn't define us.
Right.
And
right,
so
correct.
That's the important thing. So I'm really interested in getting to how you got involved with the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival, the Hollywood Prayer Network, which you guys were manning the booth for at the Rise Up Con. How did that all come about? Because that's so fascinating to me.
Well, it's pretty fascinating to me, too. It's amazing how God uses us. Like, I go back and I look, and I realize that he's been setting me up my whole life for this plan that he had for me. So the point being, if he's doing it for me, he's certainly doing it for each of you. And if you're watching right now, even if you don't want to accept the fact that he has an amazing plan for you, he does. Because he doesn't pick it. He loves us all the same, and he has all a very special plan. I deviate the plan by making crazy choices, right? Now I don't make crazy choices because I pray, I meditate, I really look to him every day. I ask him for guidance. I have other mentors that help me out. I meet guys like you. I hear your stories and stuff. So here I am out in Hollywood, And then all of a sudden, my ex-wife decided to go in a different direction in her life. So I was standing there in North Hollywood, and I stayed with another friend for a year out there. And all of a sudden, I'm like, what am I going to do, Lord? And there's an ad on one of the casting websites that was looking for a jewelry salesman in Juneau, Alaska for the summer. And it came with a place to live, a car, salary, commission, and a plane ticket from Burbank or LAX, excuse me. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that. That's what I love about live TV. I always tell people, you know what? Live TV, you just have fun. People are human, right? And it's like, so people are going to sneeze and all that other stuff, whatever. So I end up applying for the job. I take the job in Juneau, Alaska, and I get up there, and I thought it was too good to be true. After a couple of days, I realized that it was not set up to be the success that this owner had promised us salespeople, right? And so a month came later, and things didn't work out. So I ended up getting blessed to stay in Juneau and stuff, because an old gold prospector said to me, I said, I got to go home. This job's not working out. I got to get out of here. He said, no, you're going to stay here. So I'm talking to a guy with this big, tall guy, like 6'4", the big beard going down, to his groin area. He's got the flannel shirt, the suspenders, the hat, the whole thing. And he says to me, God used the devil's money to bring you up here for a greater purpose.
Wow, cool.
And I'm like, okay, well, that all sounds good, but I got like no money. I'm starting off here in Juneau. The ex-wife took everything, and I'm just like, okay, what do I do? Somebody gives me a free place to stay 2 miles from the Mendenhall Glacier.
Wow.
They said I had 21 years sober at the time, so 12 years ago. And that person said, I have a room in my house. It's had boxes in it for 15 years. I'll clean it out. We could use your sobriety here in Juneau. If you'll stay, I'll give you the room. And then somebody gave me a Jeep to use all day long.
No way.
And I got involved in the tour business, and I'm flying and I'm landing on glaciers, and I'm walking under ice caves, and I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that, and hanging out with bears and whales. And anyways, bottom line is, God says, now I need you to tell your story. And I said, God, I got a D in English in high school. I still don't know where commas and periods go half the time. And he said, did I ask you if you got a D in English in high school or not? Or did I ask you to write your story? And I said, okay, you asked me to write my story. He said, well, please just write your story. Right? So I write my story. And the first book was... I wrote one earlier on, but my one that started getting off is and these are all on Amazon under my name, Rob Ekno. Is it God or coincidence? Coming to grips with the unexpected wonders in life. And so I start writing this book, and I'll just tell you this really quickly, because this is the amazing story. So if you're sitting at home thinking, I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have that, what God told me was, you have me, just listen to what I'm telling you, and please just do it without arguing with me. So I write this book, and then I go, okay, so I spent 3.5 years writing this book with these stories, because it was my second book, and I was still getting used to writing. And I said, well, God, and what happened was I had a really, really bad injury on a cruise ship that I ended up working on, a small cruise ship, and I almost died, and my leg was shredded. It was just a whole mess. And anyways, while I was out of work, I kept writing this book, and so all of a sudden... So I'm living on like $7 a day, because, the insurance companies, they want to pay you like nothing while you're trying to settle this thing. So you'll just give up and all that. And I'm like, well, I got God, so I ain't giving up anything. Right.
Yeah.
So I said, Lord, I got this book, but I can't publish it because, nobody's going to read. I got commas, periods, all this stuff, the punctuation. He says, call David. My friend David used to work at Warner Brothers. He was an international marketing executive. And I said, David, he's an international marketing executive. We're going to call David. Blah, blah, blah. He says, would you just call David? So I called David. He's in Pasadena area, out near the Rose Bowl. And I call him. I say, Dave, I got this book. I'm writing. I've been doing it for 3.5 years. He goes, I said, but I can't publish it. I said, but for some reason, God told me to call you. He said, well, the funny thing is that just yesterday, Warner Brothers laid off 200 people, and I was one of them. So I'm now out of work, and he says, I'm not the greatest writer in the world, but I'm pretty good. He says, I'll tell you what, why don't you come over to the house tomorrow, and we'll check it out, and I'll see how I can help you. So every week, Bryan and Paul, for a year and a half. There was 1 or 2 weeks we missed because of doctor's appointments or whatever. He gave me 4 hours of time, usually every Monday, and helped me design the book, design the cover, design the interior, guided me on some of the writing stuff and everything, right? So then I go, okay, I said, Dave, we probably should have a copy editor to help us out here because, you know, he goes, yeah, he goes, that would probably be a good idea because I'm pretty good, but I don't think I got everything. So literally I go home to North Hollywood. I'm standing outside the apartment I was in near Universal Studios. And I'm like, I'm kind of bummed out because we did all this work and I can't publish it the way it was, right? Without somebody checking. And I didn't have any money to pay anybody. My neighbor comes walking out, Megan, and she says, what's going on? And I said, and I said, well, I got this book, but I can't publish it. She goes, why not? I go, because I don't have a copy editor. I don't have any money and stuff. And she goes, well, why don't you just give it to me? And I said, well, why would I give it to you? She goes, don't you know why I work out of my house? And I said, no. She said, I worked at a publishing company for 30 years as an editor, and I broke off and started my own business. But now I do all this stuff for doctors and scientists and stuff all day. She said, if you give me the manuscript, you have to wait till 5 o'clock at night when I make my money during the day. I'll be happy to bless you and edit it.
Wow.
So she edits the book, gives it back to me. I make all the corrections. She said, you know what? Give it to me again. Just let me double check it. She goes, because we always have at least a minimum of 3 eyes at every publishing company I've worked at to see the book before it goes out the door. So just give it. And she found a bunch of stuff that she missed. So I recorrected that stuff. So I said, okay, thank you. Then I called my friend in Northern California and I said, hey, I said, you're a life coach. I could really use, you know, on the back cover, I said, I could really use somebody. I don't want me writing about me. And so his is the top thing here. And I said, if you like my book, would you write, you know, 1 or 2 lines, just something about the book that you like or me or whatever you want. I said, and if you don't, you're my friend. I said, it's, you know, big deal. I said, you know, if you may not like the content, right? He said, no, send it to me. And I send it up to him. He said, send me a hard copy of the manuscript. I don't like stuff on the online, he says. So I send it to him. He calls me up and he goes, oh, by the way, Rob, he goes, I don't know if I ever told you this. I got your manuscript, but my wife and I are professional proofreaders. And so while we're reading the book to check it out for you, to give you a review, if we see anything, we'll let you know. That's how it got proofwritten. And then
he got thirsty, and then the guy worked at the 7-Eleven. I'm just kidding.
All those stories is cool stuff, right? So then you'll see this big patch of red here. That's like 8 or 9 lines. So then I said, you know, Lord, it would be really nice to have a real author read my book and say something nice about it, you know, because all these people put on the bag, you know, John is this, John is that. It's like, no, I want something about my, right? So he says, call Paul. Now, Paul was a Pulitzer-nominated author who went to a meeting that I went to, a social event on Monday nights over in the Pacific Palisades before it all burned down. And so he's like, I said, I can't call Paul. I said, he's a Pulitzer-nominated author. He's traveled the world. He's won all kinds of awards. God says, once again, Rob, now I'm literally driving on the 210 freeway, right, which is like the 40 freeway out here in Tennessee, and I'm driving, and he says, Rob, you ask me who to call, I tell you to call, and then you argue with me. Why do you then don't ask me anymore? Fine. I pull off the freeway. I pull into the parking lot at this little restaurant. I call Paul. Hey, Paul, how are you? Rob, how you doing? I said, Paul, I said, I know you're a really busy guy and stuff, and, you know, you got a lot going on, and blah, blah, blah. I said, any chance you could take a look at my manuscript? You know, I've shared about it at the meeting, you know, and he, all of a sudden he goes, dude, I would be so honored to do that for you. And I'm like, what? He goes, when I started writing years ago, a very prominent author, I asked him just what you're asking me, and he said, we always help each other out. And he said, even if we don't like the genre of what we're reading, because we write different genres, he said, you can always find 5 stars to talk about the author's heart, the passion, the way he developed the characters. You don't have to like the book, but you can appreciate the effort that went into doing that because you know how much effort it took. He said, if you give me about a month, I can do that, but because I am busy. And I'm like, a month for a Pulitzer-nominated author to give me something? I'll wait, right? He gives it back to me, and I showed you those 8 lines. He compared my book to Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh, and another book by another award-winning author. And that's how he compared my book in 8 sentences. And so I give it to David, the book designer. I said, Dave, we got this 8. He goes, oh, that's not going to fit on the back cover. I've already got it designed. I said, Dave, we got a Pulitzer Prize nominated author who's given me an 8-line. We're finding room
going on there.
So anyways, that's how it came about. And then one last thing, just to give you an idea how this whole thing has been a God thing, right? Now, get really quick into the festival and share that for you because I know we're getting late here. So then everybody says, Rob, you really need to make that into an audiobook. And I'm like, audiobook, that's $5-6 grand. I said, I don't have that. I'm out of work. I'm making $7 a day. I got no. All of a sudden, God says, call your friend Rick. Well, Rick has worked in all the studios for 30 years as a sound man. And he's got a sound studio at his house in Burbank. So I'm like, God, I can't call Rick. He's like, I said, that's $5,000-6,000. That's a big favor to ask. And God, one more time, what does he say? You ask me and then you argue with me. Then please stop asking me, Rob. You know, I've got other things to do in this world. And if you're just going to argue with me, then I'll just help somebody else, you know, and you can figure it out on your own.
You sound like Moses.
Right? Exactly. So I call Rick and I go, hey, Rick, how you doing? He goes, hey, Rob, I saw on Facebook. I saw that you got the book and everything. That's really cool, man. That takes a lot of work. I know. And I said, yeah. I said, I appreciate that. I said, you know, people are telling me that I really need to make this an audiobook. Guys, not a breath taken on his end. Dude, I got a freaking recording studio right here in my house. You be here tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. I'll set it all up, and all you got to do is hit the start and stop button. Once you get it all recorded, it'll take me about 2 months because I've got a project over at Paramount Studios right now. I'm working on this movie. Once I get done, I'll get your thing. It'll be. Calls me 2 months later. Rob, I'm putting it up on Audible. Boom, we put it up on Audible. They accept it. They test it, make sure it's make sure it's a human and all this other stuff. They put it up there about 30 minutes later. It becomes a best-selling audiobook.
Wow.
That's cool.
Unbelievable.
All of that. So the point is, Paul, is that book led me to another book, the ones I've showed you here, the other book I've showed you. So anyways, through those books, now I run into somebody who turns me on to a faith-based scriptwriter who takes my faith-based books and helps me turn them into 3 award-winning scripts. So we've got which one is this? Oh, this is my life story, Beyond Addicted. And that comes from my book that I've been showing you guys about my life testimony. So this script is based on this book. And then I've got 3 others based on the other book. So we're trying to produce those. So that's our next thing. So now I've got award-winning books, award-winning scripts. And God says, move to Nashville. I'm Knoxville. And he was very specific about Knoxville, not Tennessee. He said Knoxville. Yeah. So I come to Knoxville in the end of 2020 or at the beginning of 2024. And I win an award for this book here. You see the symbol on there. So I won the Adult Nonfiction Christian Book of the Year. This is part 2, Cruising Toward Heaven 2, and then I'm going to have 2 others in that series. And so while I'm here, this guy says we're going to have an event in Newport News, Virginia, which is 11 hours from here, Brian. Never been there. And the guy says, sir, you don't have to come up here to get your award. I'll just email you your certificate. And I think you can see some of them one of them's on the wall there anyways. But nonetheless, he said, you don't have to. And I kept telling Monique, my wonderful other half, I said, Monique, for some reason, God wants me to drive the 11 hours and be there. I don't know why. Wow. So it was like 2 months away. It was in April. Well, in the meantime, a friend of mine who I met by chance at a coffee shop in Hollywood calls and says, "Are you going to the NRB convention?" And I said, "What is that?" She goes, "National Religious Broadcasters. It's in February and it's in Nashville at the Opryland Hotel." And I said, "Well, Kimberly, you don't know this, but in 3 weeks, I'm actually moving to Knoxville. And so I guess I'll just get the cheap pass and go up there and walk around the convention floor and see if I can meet people." Well, I meet this lady, Dorothy Spalding, who owns TV 49 WBPI TV down in Augusta, Georgia. She loves the book I've been showing you guys. And she says, "Will you come down and share your testimony on my 2-hour show that I do every morning, Monday through Friday?" She said, "It's about a 6-hour drive." I said, "Well, I probably would drive 6 hours for a bag of dope or, a bunch of beer or something. So I'm sure I can drive 6 hours for God, right?" So I go down there and we start a relationship. I leave her studio and I drive 11 hours, and it happened to be the next day, side by side. Drive 11 hours up to Newport News, Virginia, to go to this little red carpet event at this church. Paul, here you go. I don't even get out of my car, and this guy I never met walks up to me. It was raining out. It wasn't pouring out, but it was decent. I didn't even get out of my car. And a guy comes up and he's like, I roll down my windows. He says, "Sir, before you leave here today, I have been given a message that you are to hear, and you are not to go home to Knoxville until you sit down and listen to this message." And I'm like,
Wow.
"Who is this guy? I didn't even get out of my car yet. I didn't even shut it off yet." Right? And so I go into this little red carpet event. It was not a long thing. It wasn't a ton of people there. We got a couple of pictures on the red carpet and stuff. And so anyways, I'm ready to go home. I got an 11-hour drive. It's already 2 p.m. and am I going to get home at like 3 a.m. or something, right? And I've never driven that way before because I went up a different way. And so I'm like, I got to get out of here. And the guy says, "Sir, you can't go. I told you I have a message that I was given to give to you." So I sit down and he said, "Sir, you are now a multi-award winning author, screenwriter, TV host, speaker. You've been in the Screen Actors Guild since 1995. I have been told that you are to immediately drive home, start the Knoxville Christian Film Festival to put up a much needed showcase to honor filmmakers honoring God with their work."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Dude," I said, "first of all, I don't know you. Second of all, I don't know where you get the message from." I'm thinking, probably. And I said, "Third of all, I haven't even finished unpacking yet. I don't have a budget. I don't know anybody in town. I don't have any venues. I have nothing." He said, "Sir, you're not listening to me. The message I got was that you are to drive home and start tonight. When you get home at 3 a.m, you are to go on Film Freeway." And if you don't know Film Freeway, it's like the eBay of film festivals. Anybody that has a film festival that they're offering up, you put it on Film Freeway, and then people go there and they can submit if they want to. And he said, "You just put it online. It doesn't cost you any money, sir. You don't have to have a venue. Just do it online only." So while I get in my car to drive home, I get on the speaker thing on my car, and I call my friend Randa in Bristol, Virginia, who I did a couple of movies. Her and Dean Cain and I and some other folks did some movies before I left Hollywood. And so I call her and I said, "Remember 2 weeks ago that I asked you why you thought God brought me to Knoxville? And you said that you think he brought me here to raise me to new heights of a man that he's never taken me before?" I said, "Well, guess what I just got asked to do? Not I didn't get asked to do. I got emphatically told I had to do." And she goes into this thing and she's like, "Oh, no, Rob. I know people for 15 years now in Knoxville that have tried this Christian film festival thing. Every one of them has fallen on their face, and it's never come to fruition, blah, blah, blah." I said, "Listen, I'm sure they're all wonderful people and stuff. I don't know who they are. Just here, I don't know anybody yet. But you're the one that told me specifically that God brought me here to take me to places I'd never been before." Now, mind you, I had been the public relations director, a media relations director for 2 pro sports teams before I got drunk and stoned too bad. And so I've done this stuff. And at the TV networks, I was telling you, I was the general manager at 2 of them. So I have management experience, filling stadium experience. So, stuff from the past. God, there was stuff there. So it wasn't like he was just asking me to come off the street as a homeless junkie and do something, right? He
Right.
got me into a position. But still, I'm like, I said, so I called her because she's also a graphic designer. Said, if you'll design a logo for me, I said, I'll go ahead and start the festival. I don't know. I said, listen, you're my sister in Christ. I said, I'll love you anyways. It doesn't matter, right? I said, but at least do me a favor. Before you say no, get on your knees and ask him what he wants you to do.
Yeah.
And so an hour later, I stop at a rest area and I get out of the car and I grab my cell phone and I see a text message from her, and she says her husband's name. And she says, he told me I don't need to pray about it. It's a no-brainer. I need to help you right away. So within a few days, she has a logo set for me. I put it up on Film Freeway, and now they check you out, and my name's all over the internet, so it was easy for them to check me out. But they said, sir, you can do this online thing. Just to let you know that just a month ago, we stopped allowing public links to your festival. So even though you put it on Film Freeway, the only way people would know it's there is not if. So in other words, if you punched in Christian film festivals, mine would come up. Now it will come up, right? But before it wouldn't. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. They said you have to promote it yourself.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I'm in town. I don't know anybody. I got no budget. And you're asking me to start a film festival with no money, and I got to promote it, and nobody will even know it's there if they don't see my little Facebook post. And I said, okay, God, if you promote it, I'll do it. So, guys, this is the funniest thing. I started at midnight, July 2nd, 2024, Paul. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I go, oh, my gosh, I got 20 submissions. Wow. Sweden, Malaysia was the first one. Oh, so I said to God, I said, if we're going to do this, Lord, let's call it the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival, and let's introduce the entire world to the greatness of the Great Smoky Mountains. So that's how it's the International Film Festival. So within minutes, I got Malaysia was the first submission, Armenia, Italy, Sweden, Germany, Vietnam, China. Wow. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. How'd they even know I was here? So what happens is then I look at it and I said, oh my God, they're all free. How'd they get to be free? Because I had put in prices. I had prayed and some feature film, X amount of dollars, short film, whatever it was, right? What happened was there was a clicking thing and it said online or public. And I said, oh, I can click public. I'll click public. Well, what happens is if you don't have a contract with a specific venue, a church or whatever, a YMCA hall, whatever, that you give to Film Freeway, you can do a public event, but every submission has to be free.
Oh, wow.
So I clicked public and I realized what happened. So I went back and I'm like, oh, this is right. I'm thinking this is horrible, right? I already got 20. I got to give away my first 20. And I said, wait a minute. I asked God to promote this thing. So within 5 hours, I was now legitimately and honestly able to go online and say, folks, we just started this brand new film festival 5 hours ago, and we've already got submissions from Malaysia, Sweden, Germany, Italy, and I wasn't lying.
Yeah, crazy.
So I switched it all to online, and 4 months later, in November of 2024, the Tennessee film community, which there was a whole bunch of those folks at the last event we just had, called me up out of the blue. This guy, Tony Caudill, calls me out of the blue, and he says, hey, meet me at Starbucks down the road here. He says, how would you like 3 hours of a free theater at Pellissippi State Community College here in Hardin Valley? We're having an entertainment event. We'll give you the theater. We'll provide the technicians, the projector people, everybody, security, everything. You just bring your films and invite filmmakers. So I'm like, okay, this is great. Well, because of weather, it got pushed all the way to the middle of January 2025. And people, Paul, from 8 states who didn't know me from a hole in the wall show up to see their films. In the meantime, I went down, I met somebody at an event, came over to my house, and he runs a men's group at a Christian church down in Lenore City. And he asked me to come down and speak. And when I spoke, I got done telling my testimony, and a big guy stands up. He goes, "Oh, it's great." He goes, "I would love to be able to help you. Is there any way I can help you?" I said, "Well, we have this event coming up, and it would be really cool if we had a red carpet banner. That would be really cool where people could take pictures and stuff." And he goes, "Well, how much would it cost?" I said, $300. He says, "Meet me 2 days from now at Starbucks in this place in Tennessee, and I'll give you the $300.
Wow.
So he came and gave me the $300. So what happened was at that event, we ended up needing an extra hour. So we actually had 4 hours that the TN Film community gifted us again. The guy paid for the red carpet banner. Then I call up Kevin Sorbo's partner, Adam, who does a lot of the other like Comic Con things, but not quite that. And I said he was there down in Pigeon Forge. I said, "Can I come down and show you something we're doing?" So I drive down to Pigeon Forge about an hour and a half. I get down there and I talk to them and I tell them what we're doing. And by the time I got home, Paul, about an hour and a half later, you can see right here, this, I'll pull it off the wall. Knoxville International Christian, live from Rise Up.
Oh, how cool.
So I did not know that he was that's Kevin's partner was a marketing expert. He designed that logo for me, sent it to me. And he said, "I think we're going to be working together." Like a day later, he said, "Let's do this." They end up last June 23rd, 27, 28, 29 of 2025, gave me 7.25 hours of time over 3 days to showcase. Plus, they gave me an area to put the red carpet banner.
Mm-hmm.
And we had people from 12 states and Canada come to our event in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. 3 days after we got finished right about July of last year, right about July 4th, I get an email from him. "Let's meet at Cracker Barrel. We got to talk about next year." Clearly, it was a cool thing, right? So then, where I just met Paul, this was next year, a couple weeks ago on April 10th and 11th.
Yeah.
And we had people from 14 states, Canada, and a guy, I don't know if you met him, Paul, big, tall Alexa, from the Isle of Malta flew over. It was incredible. And so what happened in the meantime, so that's how we're working right now. And then what happened was right before we did the one in June of last year, Dorothy at TV 49 blessed me, and I drove down and we did an hour and a half award show, and I announced all the winners that were going to be seen in Pigeon Forge in July. And while we're doing this live show on her TV station, she starts writing notes and stuff, and she's like, "What was that guy's name? Brian Carmen? We Are Resolute. Was that the name of the film?" It's like, "Yeah, that's the name of the film." And she's writing this stuff down. She says, while we're live on TV, she says, you need to join me for lunch after we leave here. I got to talk to you." Takes me to Longhorn Steakhouse in Augusta, Georgia. She says, "If you'll give me 6 months worth of half-hour shows,
Wow.
I will pull another show off the air and bless your festival and run your show every Saturday for 6 months at 3:00.
How cool.
But you got to give them to me all at once." Well, wouldn't you know it? Again, no money, no budget. I have my left hip replaced like 2 weeks later. And I'm like, "Okay, God, I don't have an editing system and all this stuff, and I'm not a professional editor." And Dorothy said, "Just keep it simple." She said, "Most of the shows are just a pastor standing in front of a pulpit with a chyron that says call in for prayer or send money, one of the two, right?" She said, "I don't need anything fancy." So God says, "What are you talking about, Rob? You have a MacBook Pro. It has iMovie on it. iMovie has graphics and transitions and stuff more than what you need." And then I called my mentor, the book designer in Hollywood. I said, "You do sizzle reels and stuff for the producers in Warner Brothers stuff." Said, "I need to run B-roll," which is like, if you don't know what B-roll is, like, while we're talking now, they might run a picture of what we're talking about. If we were talking about, Brian playing his guitar, they'd show that, whatever. And I said, I need to do that and break up the shows and stuff. And he says, oh, all you have to do is hit this button, that button, and it does it. And I'm like, I hit that button. I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, I can do everything I need to do. And one more time God says, I didn't ask you to be fancy. I just asked you to do it. So September 3rd of 2025, a month and a half later, I go back down to Georgia. The doctor gave me clearance on my hip to drive. Went down there, gave her 6 months worth of shows. Go down there this past December, Paul, a couple months ago, and it was just about to end at the end of January. And she looks at me and she says, Rob, she said, don't worry about not having sponsors right now. We'll find a way to come up with the money. Just keep giving me these shows.
Wow.
And so the shows, Bryan, and for you at home, they feature award-winning mini films, short films, or feature films. And we get like a 10, 15-minute segment out of the feature film. And then I interview the directors or the actors or stuff around it. And it's called KICFF Presents. Now, this other guy calls me up on Abundant TV, which is a free app, and it's a big Christian platform. And he says to me, hey, I'd love to air your show as well. I said, well, I'm already airing it on Dorothy's station, and she gets first dibs. I don't stab people in the back. I said, I'll tell you what, we're going to the NRB convention in a couple of weeks in Nashville, which was a couple of weeks back in February. And I said, if she says yes, that I can run it on your platform, good. But if she says no, then, I appreciate your thought. We'll have to do something later on. I get there. I ask her son-in-law, and I said, hey, do you think your mom would be upset if we did this? And he goes, as long as you give us the first show, the first airing of each show, wait 2 weeks, you can give it to any other network you want and show off God all you want.
Cool.
So I grabbed the guy in the hallway. I said, meet me in the hallway. I got news for you. So we've been running. So now we have a show, Paul, that runs Saturdays at 3 p.m. on Watchman Broadcasting down in Georgia, TV 49, and they can see it online. Of course, everything is online, so it's worldwide, right? So WBPI.org. Then Abundant TV runs it on Thursday nights in prime time at 8:30.
Wow.
And the show that leads into us won the gold medal at the NRB convention and just won the top show award at the International Christian Music Festival in Orlando this past week.
Sweet.
That's our lead in to us. So it airs Thursday nights, plus he runs it at least 3 other times during the week random. So 5 times a week, we have a TV show running.
That's so great.
We've had 3 live festivals, and this is all God. And so I was on another podcast a while back, and they said, this is a business podcast. Tell us your business plan. I said, well, I'm going to tell you a weird business plan. I look up at the sky and I say, what do you want me to do? And then he tells me, and I said, so there is no plan. And this lady is like in shock. And I'm like, and then I tell her the story I just told you. And I said, well, that's how it's evolving. So eventually there's got to be sponsors that come along. Eventually there's got to be stuff that happens, right? God's not just going to have me do it, just keep doing it, right? So then the Hollywood Prayer Network, I lived in Hollywood for 31 years. I was literally 2 miles from where their headquarters are. Never heard of the Hollywood Prayer Network. So they've been around. This August 29th, they'll be celebrating 25 years. They're having a big gala out there. And I never knew they existed. They've got over 10,000 members. And so I saw them on Facebook, and I contacted them. I said, what's this Hollywood Prayer Network? They said, well, we have a chapter in Memphis, in Nashville. We'd really love one in Knoxville if you would want to start one. And I said, what do you do? He said, we pray for podcasts like Paul's and Bryan's podcasts and different things like that. And maybe some celebrities that are going through, like P. Diddy, like when he went through his stuff, they prayed for him. They walk around to studios in Hollywood and pray for better programming and stuff. So they got this big thing. So I just started, and I just started throwing it out there. Anybody wants to be a part of it. So then I said to them, I said to the guy, Adam, Kevin Sorbo's partner, I said, hey, you got a table that blocks when people come in, and the red carpet and where you check people in, there's just a table sitting there sideways. I said, what would you think if we turned it the other way? And the Hollywood Prayer Network sent me a beautiful embroidered stretch tablecloth and a poster. And we used that as a prayer station for people, because last June, during the Rise Up, Paul, tons of people came to us asking for prayer. And we were caught off guard because we weren't expecting that, right? It's our first time with them. So I said, can we do that? So I call Hollywood Prayer Network. They said, we'll send you one. They ordered one, had it delivered to my office here and stuff. And the guy, and Adam said, yeah, we can do that. Well, I got to tell you, Bryan and Paul, nobody had any expectation that it was going to be as powerful and meaningful. It might have been as wonderful as, Kevin and the Arnett's and all the wonderful people, Eric Avari and all of our award-winning filmmakers. That prayer booth might have been the most powerful and impactful piece of the whole entire beautiful Rise Up, as good as everything else was. People were coming to us before we even had set up for the day. I mean, before a building opened, because it was vendors and stuff like yourself that were setting up, and somebody's coming over, I got cancer, somebody else is this and that. And it was amazing, Bryan, the people. And I had 17 people that volunteered to stay there and work throughout the weekend, rotating shifts every couple of hours. Somebody would change out and stuff. And the stories they're telling me, and then we had a box. Oh, I got it downstairs. But I made a box because some people wanted prayer right smack dab then. They didn't care if there was 6,000 people walking around. They were in so much pain. They pray for me right now. And then others, I set up a really nice box where they could slide the 4x6 cards in, and we prayed over the boxes. And the reality is, Paul, I didn't even get to pray for anyone because I was so busy with our showcases and red carpet and people want to talk to you and stuff like that. And I had to walk around. That's how I met you. And, I needed a break too. But my team that worked, Brian McGill and all the others, just incredible. They were drained by Saturday night because they put in so much energy sharing the goodness of God. Yes. And that's how that came about.
Yeah, you guys had a crowd all weekend. Every time I stepped out of the main hall, you had more people out there with you guys out in the main in the lobby than were walking around in the hall. It was uncanny.
Well, and what's interesting is, so last June there was a 6-foot table, folding table, that separated us from the red carpet from the people coming in where they checked them in. And I said, can we turn that sideways? So I'm expecting this 6-foot table to get there. So I get there and I'm like, oh, where's the table? There's no table here. And this guy that works there, this wonderful gentleman, Travis, he says to me, well, there is no table. He says, if you get a table, we'll have to charge it to Rise Up Con and they'll have to pay for it. I'm like, wow. I thought there was a table. And he said, and if I had known that, I would have just brought a 6-foot table with me, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know. So now I know for next time. But nonetheless, he says, again, another God shot. He says, you know what? I have this like folding card table thing. It's only 4 feet. He said, but I got it in the back near the kitchen, and I can let you use it for free if you want. And so that's why the table looked smaller than the 6-foot, but it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. I think it was better smaller.
Yes.
It seemed to work better because it stood out differently. You had the box on there, and the way it was set up, it looked different than everybody else.
Yes.
And I think you were better with the 4-foot table than the 6-foot.
It was amazing. And the funny thing is that when I first started this and I first started the first film festival, and I had people in this town looking at me like, oh God, this guy's going to be falling on his face at any moment in time. And you know what? At this particular event here, leave it up to God. It's not me, it's God. They're serving him, not me. I had people begging me to come and volunteer for us to help out at that prayer festival. And I had people ask me to sing for us in the festival. So we broke up the films by having a couple of folks come and sing amazing songs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And just incredible. And one of the guys that came, Troy, he sang, and after he got done, he came and helped me run the controls and stuff so we could show the movies and stuff. And he was just volunteering, helping me out. And all of a sudden he looks at me and he goes, you know, next year I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to do that for you. And I'll set it up on PowerPoint. And I'm like, oh my gosh, people are already talking about helping us next time when this time isn't even done. Because Bryan, the power of God that was oozing throughout, like Paul said, and you know, basically, what is the area? It's like I have an 8-foot red carpet, so here, and then 2. So basically, like it was about 10-foot area, right? Because we had the table, we had the 4-foot table kitty cornered. And so basically, Paul, you're talking about a 10-foot area about the size of a small bedroom. And that thing had more people in it than you couldn't fit more people in it. Matter of fact, some of the red carpet interviews we did, even though we had a microphone, because we were taping on the cell phones, even though we had a microphone on the red carpet, there were so many people around the phone that we were recording on, we couldn't use some of the interviews because it was so noisy out there. So that's another thing we got to work on for next year. That's a good thing, but it's, you know, we use the interviews on our TV shows and stuff. So hopefully that answered your question. It all came about. God had lined up every single thing. And then I walk in and there you and David are, and I start talking to you. And I said to you, I said, I'll be your first guest. And I didn't know that I was actually your first guest that signed up at the Rise Up.
Absolutely. And you're the first one. We've got other people lined up from there, but you're the first one that we met at the Rise Up that came on the show.
Yeah, so. This is such a cool experience. I hope we've helped somebody to realize that without a dime in my pocket, I'm running at the moment, and it'll change. Obviously, God has blessed us with a TV show on 2 amazing platforms. A worldwide TV show where people are, right after the first one aired, Bryan, on September 3rd of last year, the 2025, I got an email from the TV station going, folks are wondering where they can see the show again.
That's what I was going to ask, Paul, if we can get behind the scenes, because we've gone over 2 hours. I got to go do some things.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah, it went fast.
This was
so. If we can get that information to Paul and he can put it in the comments for anybody that's looking to join you, dedicate some time to what's the word I'm looking for? Volunteer.
Yes.
And so get that information after the show's done with Paul. But I gotta get off of here. I got a couple of things I gotta do before I hit the sack. So.
Oh man,
lots of stories. I can imagine you around the campfire.
I'll wrap up the show, Bryan, if you got to run.
Okay.
It's just.
Yeah, Bryan, a blessing. Thank you for having me here. And I didn't know, oh my gosh, who knew it was going to go this long? All right, we'll see you soon again. Hopefully, Bryan. Have a blessed night.
You too.
Well, you're our longest guest ever.
Yep.
All right, man.
I guess just take my square away. Thanks for being on, and I'll see everybody.
Paul, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm the longest guest ever.
Well, I love it, man. There's a lot of shows that ended, and I was like, man, I could have got another hour. So this was cool. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to get a hold of you?
So get a hold of me at Rob Ekno, EKNO.com. And for the sobriety stuff and the books we're talking about, they're right on that website. And then also KnoxvilleChristianFilms.com. That's the website for our film festival, and that takes you to our Facebook and socials and stuff, and everything about us is there, including, Paul, the Knoxville Hollywood Prayer Network. There's a tab at the top that says KHPN, and that'll tell you about what we're doing there as stuff as well. So, yeah, thank you for this blessing. My gosh, you get talking about God and sobriety and goodness, and the Holy Spirit kind of takes a hold of you, and you just get it out there.
Yeah, I knew you had a lot to talk about, and our emails kind of led me to. So I emailed Bryan before we started. I said, "Hey, can you go a little long tonight? Because I think the show's going to go a little longer." and I shared with you, before we came on, that I felt like this was going to be an important show for some reason. I believe the Lord's going to use it in some way,
Yes.
incredibly. Thank you so much for taking your time and coming out and
Thank you.
sharing with us everything you're doing. Your book's on Amazon, your books?
Yes, under Rob Ekno, Robekno, all the books. We got, I'll show you really quick. So we've got Is It God or Coincidence? If you want some great feel-good stories. Then we've got Cruising Toward Heaven 1, which is my life testimony of all my drugs and alcohol. This is all about my relationship, an ever-evolving relationship with God in Alaska. Awesome pictures. And this particular book right here, I just won. I was a finalist for Author of the Year 2025. The book You're Dying Not to Write. It's about getting people to tell their story as well. Matter of fact, last Saturday night, it was the runner-up out of 12 finalists in the Kingdom Book Awards as well. So it's had some great success. So it's all about positivity and just getting us all to look in the mirror and to start taking the action to help us be our best.
Fantastic. Well, again, I want to thank you so much. Sorry to everybody in the comment section. Usually we throw comments up and interact with the audience, but I felt like tonight's show, just giving you the platform to talk about these things was important. And so thanks for everybody that participated. And until next week, we'll see you all again. God bless you all. And thanks for tuning in. And if you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, share it. We want to be able to get the word out to as many people as possible. Rob, thanks so much.
Paul, thank you for the blessing.